Hi and welcome back to doc.offcall. I'm Maddie. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 tips for foundation doctors. So I have to say, having done my foundation years, they were probably the most valuable years in terms of learning the job of a doctor. The learning curve is really steep initially, but it does begin to plateau into your second year foundation training, where you're beginning to get used to what your job is and what the roles are. But anyway, today I want to share with you the top tips for surviving your foundation training and how to make sure you get the best out of those years. And it's important to note that these are tips both from my own experience as well as other junior doctors. So tip 1 would be wear clothes with lots of pockets. Now, I have to say, the types of things that you end up carrying in your pockets after you get home from a shift, it can be quite staggering, the things that come out of those. You're going to end up carrying things like your ID, your stethoscope, your phone, possibly a notepad to write things down. I know some people would carry the cheese and onion book, a copy of the BNF, spare equipment like tourniquets for when you're busy rushing around trying to put in that cannula or take a set of blood tests. So really have clothes that have lots of pockets in, just so that you can make sure that you've got all your stuff with you. A way of getting around that is that I do know some doctors that wore almost like a satchel or a bum bag or sort of a fanny bag to carry anything in. And look, a fanny bag can look fashionable and cool. Just look how Dwayne Johnson rocked it. But really, if it helps out on your shift and makes sort of carrying around everything with you easier, then by all means do it. And tip 2 would be to ask questions or ask for help when you need it. Now, there's a famous quote, the day you stop asking questions is the day you stop learning. And I have to say, when I first started as a foundation doctor, I was really scared. I came to the ward sort of almost frightened every day, wondering if I was going to make a mistake and not knowing what people were really talking about. But had I spoken up earlier and asked those questions, then I probably would have had a much more enjoyable experience. And really, it's expected that of foundation doctors who are just getting used to the job that they're going to be asking questions. It's really when you get to a later stage in your training, if you're then having to ask simple things that people would have assumed you would have known as a foundation doctor, that's when it can get flagged up as an issue. So really ask all of those questions now, and there are no silly questions. And in addition to that, asking for help. So one of those key characteristics of a foundation doctor is being able to highlight the limitations of your knowledge and practice, and knowing when to escalate and knowing when to ask for help. At the end of the day, we're looking after people's lives here, and if you don't know what you're doing, that could be a safety issue. So always ask questions when you're not sure, and ask for help as well, rather than just suffering in silence. Now, tip 3 is probably one of those things that all trainees kind of don't love doing, but know that we have to do it, and that is keeping up to date with your e-portfolios. So a lot of you might be new to an e-portfolio coming into foundation training, but that's where you capture your learning as a trainee, and you want to make sure that you are consistent with that, rather than leaving it all to the end of a rotation to get your assessment signed off or to get your multi-source feedback signed off. So make sure you give a good time to send out tickets for things rather than leaving it to the end of your rotation, and plan when you're going to do your assessments. All right. Remember, I said before, fail to prepare and prepare to fail. So you really want to make sure you're on top of that from the get-go, and that will keep you in good stead going forward, because the e-portfolio is not going to be going anywhere. In fact, it's going to be there throughout your training and finally once you've qualified. Tip 4 is really raise concerns when you see something wrong, and not just to leave it. All right, now it's really important that there's transparency in the way that we work, and if you feel that there's anything wrong, whether that's with your rota or with colleagues or with seniors, make sure to raise it and to find out how you go about raising that. Now, I know within my deanery we had sort of a monthly forum for the foundation trainees where we can go and report things, but then they also set up additional ways for us to report things online. Now, the more formal ones would be things like Ulysses, which are incident referral forms, where if you've noticed something clinically going wrong, that your obligation is to put that in there. But if there are things about your rota or the way in which you're working, then you need to know where to raise those. Now, tip 5 is a really important tip, and the sooner you get hold of this, the easier your job's going to be, and that is learn how to do good referrals. And being the foundation doctor, you're often going to be left with the jobs at the end of a ward round, which may involve referring patients to different teams or different specialties within the hospital. Now, there's nothing worse than reading a referral form which you don't understand, you don't know what question is being asked, and there aren't the relevant results there to allow you to give your opinion. And so it's really worth getting to know what the teams, the specialty teams, want in a referral form, and knowing how to structure that to them, because not only will it possibly fast track your referrals because they'll know what advice to give you, but it will also generate a good relationship within the teams in the hospital, and it shows that you put in effort and you know what you're talking about as a doctor when referring patients. Tip 6 is to book your holiday or your annual leave. Now, if you're in a rotation where you are able to choose your annual leave, then I would really encourage you to get that done early on, because the later you leave it, the less likely there's going to be the option to take it off, because everyone else might be off as well. So clearly not all the doctors can be off in one team at one given time, so you're going to want to really plan that and negotiate with your colleagues your annual leave. If your leave, on the other hand, is organised for you and you're not able to move that around, then really maximise your holiday. All right, now you're working quite intense shifts as a foundation doctor, sometimes working weekends, nights, long days, short days, and so when you've got your breaks, you really want to do something that you're going to enjoy and something that's going to be memorable and that's going to give you that recharging of energy that you need to come back, for another round of intense work. So make sure to use your annual leave. If you're able to, book it in advance, and if you're not able to, then at least book to do something that you're gonna enjoy and maximise your time off. I remember what I used to do as a foundation doctor. I used to look in advance on things like Skyscanner and try and book a budget holiday in Europe. And if that was over a long weekend, then I would just say, well, you know what, after these night shifts, I'm going off to, let's say, Germany for a weekend, and I'm going to really enjoy that. And it gives you something to look forward to on your shifts. And before you know it, you would have travelled the whole of Europe in the space of 2 years, as well as having completed your foundation training. Tip 7 is be honest when something goes wrong. And this is really important, and it shows good character as a doctor. Now, we're all going to naturally make mistakes, and people understand that, all right? And it's just important that if you do make one, that you come forward and you try to give an explanation as to why that occurred, all right? Typically, there is going to be a rational reason, and people for the most part are sensible and they understand that these things occur. But if you don't admit to your mistakes, it's more likely to lead to a complaint and end up with a poor outcome between the doctor-patient relationship as well. Having said that, if it's between clinician and clinician or doctor-doctor, just come forward and say, if you've made a mistake, and, allowing you to move beyond it rather than allowing it to linger there, and cause any distrust between colleagues. Tip 8 is to keep clear written records in patients' notes.
Doctor, can you come and see this patient for me, please?
Yes, what is it? Have you got their notes?
I think they're just on the table there.
Okay, no worries, thanks. And this is really important because what you want to imagine is that you're actually writing notes not for yourself but for the next person who comes to read the notes. You know, if it's someone who's on call covering the evening or the night shift, and they want to come and see what's been going on with that patient throughout the day. Now, if you've written coherent, clear, structured notes, it allows that doctor, you know, to visualize what that patient looked like before they came to see them and what were the sort of current issues and the plans moving forward with them. There's nothing worse than coming to look at notes which are indistinguishable and you don't know, you know, what the plan is, you can't read the handwriting. I've been there myself. So take a couple of more minutes extra time just to write more clearly, concisely in a system, and it will be appreciated by all teams that come to review those notes. In addition to that point, medical notes are actually often audited. So you know, people come around and audit to see if there is clear documentation of the date, your name, that you've signed, and that the requirements of written documentation are in place. And you know, if that isn't achieved, then you know that those results of that audit come back to you, and your consultants will be coming down on you like a pile of bricks if you're not getting those simple things right. Now, if you feel it would be useful for me to do a video talking about how to do medical record making or written communication, then I'm happy to put up that as a video. Just leave that in the comments below, and yeah, I can put out a video on that. Tip 9, and this one is a bit more complicated and might need a bit of homework, but it's remember the issues around consent and capacity. Okay, so depending on what department you're going to be working in, you're going to be coming across issues of consent and mental capacity on a possible daily basis. You know, that's going to be consent for medical procedures, consenting patients for surgery, or even consenting a patient to examine them if it was an intimate examination, and you want to make sure that you're getting informed consent. So it's worth having a read as to what constitutes informed consent. And then when it comes to mental capacity, that could come up in the guise of, you know, if a patient wants to self-discharge from hospital, you know, they may need to sign a form to say that they have done that against medical advice. But part of that is you assessing their mental capacity to be able to make the decision, and you know, you're going to have a read as to what constitutes if someone has the mental capacity to do that. Now, lastly, this tip is probably one of the most important, and that is to get support throughout your training. Now, throughout your foundation training, you will have a clinical supervisor as well as an educational supervisor who would have had a number of foundation trainees throughout the years, and they are in a really good place to direct you to places as to how to develop your training, to direct you to tools or online resources if you're having difficulty. But they can also give you some guidance on careers as well. If you're thinking of going into a specific specialty, they may be able to advise on that also. So they're supervisors, they're there to supervise your work, but are also an essential resource for you to be able to get whatever information that you're needing that will help in your training. So I hope those top tips were useful for foundation trainees. They were certainly useful for me, but I didn't have the benefit of a video to watch before starting my training. Now, if you did find those useful, please do like and subscribe below. I will be putting out more videos for foundation trainees and how to survive those foundation years. If there are any specific questions, or if you'd like me to make any specific videos, please do leave those recommendations down below in the comments, and I will do my best to produce that for you. Otherwise, please do like and subscribe, and if you're interested in things like prioritization or stress management whilst at work, please do look at these videos before moving on. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.